Thank you for coming today. We are going to cover work safely in the construction industry, specifically criteria 2, which is identify construction hazards and control measures. My name is Clair Smith. Any questions, please shout out. Okay. I actually need to get you all to sign in for me. So I'll just get you to put your name, surname, phone number and signature, all 4 of you please. Everyone have pens? Thank you. We've also got a workbook that we'll be going through along with the PowerPoint. So we'll be writing information in as we go, and there will be a test at the end as well. So grab one. Right back here. Thank you. Okay, so during this hour presentation, we'll learn to identify the basic principles of risk management. We'll identify and discuss common construction hazards, and we'll explore appropriate measures for controlling hazards and risks. I'll just go through a little bit of housekeeping before we start. We have emergency exits here and at the back here. If you need to go to the bathroom, please let me know. I don't want to clean up your mess. It's only an hour presentation, so we won't be taking a lunch break or anything. However, if you do need a break or need to put money in the meter or use the bathroom, just let me know. We can stop.
I will have to put money in my car meter.
Yep. No worries, just let me know. Please turn off or just put on silent your mobile phones. If it rings, I get to answer them. And please don't smoke. Smoking areas outside. Construction hazards and control measures. Okay, so who can tell me what they think a hazard might be?
Could be something that could harm you.
Yeah? Anyone else?
Something that can cause an accident, I suppose. Something that's can cause an accident.
Yeah.
It's not safe.
Not safe?
Not secure.
Okay. So a hazard is defined as anything or situation with the potential to cause injury or harm. Now,
Write that in.
you need to write that in. You will need that for the test, so make sure you write that in. I'll give you a chance to write that down. Anything or situation with the potential to cause injury or harm. So it might not definitely cause harm, it just needs to have that potential there for it to be considered a hazard. Now there are 2 types of hazards. Has everyone written that down? Sorry.
Not yet. Okay, I'm all good.
Alright, so 2 types of hazards. We have acute physical hazards, or we have chronic long-term hazards. Now, common acute hazards include things like manual handling, such as pushing, pulling, carrying, lifting. The work environment, so it might be floor surface, noise, temperature, ventilation. Machinery, powered or non-powered, they can all be acute hazards. Heat, electricity, chemicals or fumes, So hazardous substances, they can all be acute. Biological waste, so if you're working in a kitchen, you'll quite often be up against those sort of hazards. Skin penetrating injuries, so knives, syringes, anything like that. And even noise can be, and confined spaces is definitely an acute hazard. In contrast, we have the chronic hazards, so chronic long-term, which is things that can happen over a long period of time. So it may not cause damage immediately, but if you keep doing it, it will. So examples like repetitive strain injury, asbestos, that doesn't occur straight away, it happens a bit later, back injury, long-term exposure to chemicals, is all chronic hazards. Did you have a question?
No, not at the moment.
So hazards can be grouped into 5 basic classifications. We have physical, chemical, biological, radiation, and even psychological. So what do you think a physical hazard could be? You want to think of any examples?
If you're walking in something with something that could trip you over, like a chair.
Yep, that would definitely be a physical hazard. So other ones include frayed electrical cords, unguarded machinery, constant loud noise, working from ladders, scaffolding or any heights, spills, tripping hazards. They're all examples of physical hazards. What about chemical? What do you think a chemical hazard?
Any products, maybe?
Yep, that's a good one. So just skin or insulation of. Yep.
Even if you're working in a film industry, you've got lots of, that sort of chemicals around.
Absolutely. Yep, that's a good one. Or cleaning your kitchen. So cleaning products or solvents, vapours and fumes, carbon monoxide, gasoline, or just flammable material in general. Okay, biological. What do you think it means by biological hazard? Live? Yeah.
Or as I said before, bacteria, kitchen.
Yes, absolutely. Bacteria, working in a kitchen. Okay, so blood or other bodily fluids. Yep. Bacteria and viruses. Insect bites. Animal and bird droppings. What about radiation? What do we think?
Sun.
Yes. Sun is definitely a big one.
X-ray machines.
X-ray machines is another one.
X-light or the radiative.
Yep. Okay, so electric welding flashes, UV sunlight, X-ray machines, power lines. There's a debate over mobile phones. What about psychological hazards? What do you think it could mean by that?
Oh, workplace bullying.
Absolutely, workplace bullying. Trauma? Yep. Okay, so we've got bullying, harassment, an unrealistic workload, social exclusion, so if you're segregating one social group over another, purposely leaving someone out, just social exclusion, poor communication, negative reinforcement. But you will find that in most workplaces, a majority of the hazards you come across will actually be physical hazards. Okay, so that's a hazard. What do you think a risk would be? So if a hazard has a potential to cause harm, what would the risk be? What do we think?
You would want to take a risk. So it'd be something.
Would be a hazard.
It could be just another word for a hazard.
As a potential for something to go bad, but not necessarily. So a risk maybe a slippery floor or something, although that could be a hazard.
Okay. Alright, so the hazard is the potential for something to go wrong. The risk is in two parts. It is a combination of the likelihood of that hazard causing harm and the consequences if it does so. Okay. So, for example, if you... So I'll get you to write that down. There's a spot in your book there. So it's a combination of the likelihood of something causing harm and the consequences if it does. So an example of that would be if you are working in a kitchen. A hazard might be that there's water on the floor. It has the potential to cause harm. The risk would be if you would be slipping in that water. So the hazard is the water and the risk is the risk of falling.
So it's the action.
It's the consequence. So the likelihood and the consequence if it does. So it's a high risk, low risk of it happening and what the consequence would be if it does.
Yeah.
Has everyone got that?
Yeah.
That's the key. You just got to do what you're doing. Like all of it. Yourself. You're not used to doing
Now, risk management, we work under the Australian New Zealand standards. It's all regulated. It looks at the sorts of events that may impact and what is important to them. It looks at the likelihood that these events may occur, the type and extent that such impacts would have, what can be done to prevent these sort of events from happening, and how to deal with the events if they do actually occur. Now, the risk management uses there are 5 stages to the risk management process. They are to identify the hazards. So I'll get you to write these down as well in your book. So obviously you need to identify what the hazards are before you can prevent them, deal with them, etc. You need to assess the hazard. Chance to write that down. So how bad is the risk? Is it worth taking the risk? Do we need to get rid of it? Put that down. Number 3, consult and report. So talk to your colleagues, put in place processes to deal with that particular risk, the hazard and the risk involved with that hazard. Don't involve everyone. Put down number 4. You need to work how to eliminate or control the risk, the hazard. Sorry. And review and improve. So what you put in place to control the risk, did it work? Is there a better way to do it next time? And it's always room for improvement. Okay, now to help us analyse the risks, we use what's called a risk assessment matrix. Now, it's pretty standard across workplaces. Has everyone seen one of these before? Or a variation of?
I've used one. It's a bit different to that one, but I've used one before.
Yeah, there are different ones for different states as well. Have you guys seen one? No?
I haven't used one for probably 20 years.
20 years? Still around? No worries. Well, look, we'll go through what it is and how to read one. So we know, so there's 3 parts to it. Firstly, it looks at the probability or likelihood that a hazard will cause harm. So there across the top, it's very likely, likely, unlikely, or very unlikely that it will cause harm. And you can write down these 3 in your book.
I like the math side. It's not that I'm a
It looks at the consequences. So on the left there, how much harm could it do? Could it kill or cause permanent disability or death as the most extreme? Maybe long-term illness or serious injury, medical attention, several days off work, or maybe just first aid. Have you all written down the second one?
There was one part I did actually want to actually do. After saying that though, oh my god, it wasn't straight away. It was after that, and then explaining the earlier time. Actually got part of it. But it was you gotta go with it. That's all. Massive. All of those. Have you done? I've never done.
Yep. And third, it also looks at the frequency, which is also along the top. So how often could people be harmed like it? How often could people be harmed and how likely is it that they would be harmed? So it could happen at any time. Could happen sometimes. It could happen, but very rarely. Or it could happen, but it probably never will. So that's across the top as well. Now, just get you to write that in. Okay. So an example would be, so we have the ratings. So if it's very likely, it comes up with number 1, unlikely is 2, very unlikely is 3, and then you've got less severe going down. So long-term illness could be a 4 if it's unlikely, or a 5 if it's just medical attention, etc. So if we're looking at this, for an example, we're in a kitchen and someone spilt oil on the floor. So that's the hazard. They spilt the oil on the floor and it's in front of an open flame. Okay, so in this scenario, how severely could it hurt someone? What do we think?
Oh, worst case scenario, it could kill someone.
Absolutely. So kill or cause permanent disability or death, health. So we're in the top row for that. How likely is it?
Depends who's in the kitchen.
You're in a busy workplace kitchen. There's going to be lots of
Well, it's
people
likely
working
it's going to
around.
happen then.
It's pretty likely, isn't it? So very likely, could happen at any time. So bring it up, which gives us a 1. 1 is top priority and you need to do something immediately. So if someone has spilt oil in the middle of a busy kitchen in front of an open flame, do something immediately. On the other hand, if for instance we had some filing needed to be doing and the risk is that maybe someone will get a paper cut, okay? How likely do you think that would be?
It could be likely.
So
It depends.
Very unlikely, I reckon.
yeah,
It will be very severe.
But I hate that when you get staples that pierce your fingers and you take them off.
well that would be a higher one.
There's a bit of blood comes out then.
Alright,
I'd
so
say very unlikely.
yeah, the amount of filing people do, they're not covered in cuts all the time. So I'll say,
Yeah.
like if we put that as it's very unlikely, like it could happen but probably wouldn't. And if it does happen, how severe is a little paper cut?
Maybe a band-aid only, not even first aid.
Barbie
First
Band-Aid.
aid.
Barbie Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Band-aid.
Not a Ben 10 one, a Barbie
No,
one?
Barbie Band-Aid.
Sure. Okay,
Band-Aid.
so first aid needed, not very likely. We'd be at 6. And a 6 is low priority. Do something when possible. So if someone's really worried about getting a paper cut, They can wear gloves if they want, but it's not a priority. It's probably never going to happen. It's just the matrix. Okay, so if we need to identify hazards in the workplace, what's the first thing we're going to do when we walk into a workplace? How are we going to identify hazards?
Look around.
Look.
2 eyes in front of your head, we're going to be looking around. So where would you look? Up. Yep, first place you look is above eye level. So things like power lines, buildings, trees. Can you think of anything else that would be up that could cause a hazard?
Oh, it might be in a warehouse, so you might have boxes up, stacking, shelving, that sort of thing.
Yep, that's a great one. What else? You good? What about ground to eye height? So sort of this area. What sort of hazards are you likely to?
Anything you can trip over or bump into.
Yes, absolutely. So other equipment, machinery, other people, pedestrians, just things in your path of travel, other obstructions. What about ground level?
Stuff you can fall in.
Falling, yeah. So holes,
Power lines.
yep, cables,
Still not clearly marked.
Water or anything on the floor.
Yeah.
Spills.
Tip over.
yep, absolutely. So that the surface is level and stable, spills are wet surfaces, well done. Debris, rubbish. That the surface is strong enough to support the weight of any equipment or materials. Holes, so trenches, recently filled back trenches, and generally just stable ground.
Put one in a car.
I need to put one in the car.
Yeah.
Alright. Real. Okay, so we have a construction site, and we're just going to go through and identify some of the hazards that we can find on here. So we'll go through them together, and I will get you to write these in your book. So here I've got the correct page open. Okay, common construction hazards. Now these aren't all the hazards that can be in a site, these are just some of them. Okay. So first of all, we have confined spaces. Got our builder going into the trench here. Electrical safety, so we've got power lines up the top here. Be careful that none of the equipment's going to run into the power lines. Also the risk being you've got electric shock, let alone the physical damage to the equipment. Absolutely. Next down here we have excavations, so trenches, you can fall into holes. Next we have falling objects in the top left there. Don't really want to be hit in the head by a falling hammer.
No, that happens.
It does happen,
Does.
absolutely.
That happened at my last workplace.
Did it really?
Yes.
What happened?
What happened was that they were working outside and up on the roof, and part of the roof, there's this big glass areas, there's these glass panels, and it dropped onto, a hammer dropped onto the glass, it was smashed, it went everywhere, absolutely everywhere in the office.
Oh, was anyone hurt?
Fortunately not. Linda had just put her glasses on. because it went smashed right above her desk.
Oh,
Wow.
And I was safe where I was because I've got a bit of a panel between me, but it just glass everywhere. It was just dropping a hammer from above.
Wow. So
So it
careful.
happens.
Absolutely. Okay, hazardous substances and dangerous goods. On the right there. So leaky barrels, chemicals, fumes, you've got slips. Put that one in. May or may not have the skull and crossbones like in the picture. HIV and other infectious diseases. So if there's needles lying around. So at I think it was Southern Cross Station a few weeks back, the police pulled over this guy and they actually found 3 syringes on him. So I think he had one sort of in his back pocket, which would have been incredibly dangerous. I don't know if it had a cap on it or not, but had a syringe in his back pocket. He had one in his boot. I'm not sure the other one, it might have been a front pocket, but they had to like subdue him without getting stuck by these needles. So you just got to be so careful of HIV and other infectious diseases. They spread, body liquid. Okay, cold working environment could be a hazard. Also a hot working environment. So you can get sun damage, UV radiation. Both at the top there. It's when you wear things like sunblock and hats. All things to be aware of. Not necessarily things you can control. You can take preventative measures. So the hazard would be the UV radiation. Next we have manual handling. So do we all know the correct way to lift heavy?
Straight back.
Yep.
Bend your knees.
Bend your knees, straight back, hold the item close to you. Or if it is, and don't make any jolts from side to side. If it's too heavy for you, you can use a machine or another person, so 2 people lifting it instead of 1, or a cherry picker or anything else. If it's too heavy for you, just be safe with manual handling. So manual handling, everyone got that one in?
Yep.
Yep. Noise is a common hazard in a construction site. Obviously there's power drills and lots of other noisy jackhammers, etc.
Even, music blaring because someone wants a bit of music can be just off-putting too.
Absolutely. If you're playing Britney Spears, you're going to go.
Oh, you're going to have to listen.
Psychologically, you're playing Justin Bieber.
Oh, absolutely. A cruel and unusual punishment.
Yeah.
We have plant and equipment, so there's noise from that as well. Also just using it in general, just safe usage. Next we have traffic and mobile plant. So more heavy duty equipment can be hazardous.
Forklifts.
Yep, absolutely. Forklifts, to know how you're using them, they're used for. But they can definitely pose as a hazard. Unplanned collapses. So you've got to be wary of that. Make sure any temporary walls are secured. And just be aware that things fall, things break.
Did you kill those people with that war a couple of years ago?
Oh, the 3 kids.
Yeah.
What happened with that?
Heritage listed, and so
Yeah,
they
that's
weren't allowed
right.
to do anything, and then bang, it just came down, and people happened to be there. Bang,
Really?
go on.
2 French.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
That's so scary.
Because
Absolutely.
there's so much in the city that's heritage listed. It's
In
very
this city
scary.
especially, apparently.
Yeah.
When a new city, they burn them down. So
That's one way to make
Bit
it
of
feel like
insurance
a
job.
insurance.
For sure. And lastly, we have the dangers of work, the hazards of working at heights.
Yeah. We want to have a metal blank, would you? Just bang. Oh, whoops.
Gravity works. That is so nice. Good night. You got it right. Okay. So what we'll do is we're going to go through a couple of hazards and just work out what sort of risks could be involved in those hazards. Okay, so confined space. What sort of risk could be involved if you've got a confined space? What's the risk of that? What could happen?
You can't move, or
You might get
always
stuck.
Might get stuck? Yep.
Fumes.
Yep,
Might have a panic attack from small spaces.
absolutely.
Freak out. Yeah.
Yeah, freak
Yep.
out.
So we've got inhalation of toxic fumes. Be another one. What about electricity? What sort of risk could be involved in electricity?
Electric shocks.
Absolutely, electric shocks.
Yeah.
That's a shocking experience.
Boom, boom, boom. So you did there. Did you see that?
Uh-huh.
Yep, so it's run the risk of electrocution or electric shocks. What about in excavations?
Well, making of holes.
Falling in.
Falling in?
Falling in.
Absolutely. Falling objects. Might get hit.
Might get squished.
Absolutely. Head injury.
Yeah.
Hazardous substances.
Burns, poison.
Yep. Burns, poisons, they're good ones. So chemical burns. Infectious diseases.
HIV can heal things.
Yep. Could get sick.
Yes.
The risk being you get sick. So hepatitis is one of the risks. There's a few there. Hot, cold environment. How is that risky?
Hypothermia.
Yes, hypothermia in a cold one. Heat stroke in a hot one. Manual handling. What's the risk there?
Damage in your spine, body, back.
Yep, physical damage, muscles, aches, pains. A back injury would be one example. Noise.
Death.
Death.
Yep, hearing, tinea. Plant and equipment. So long-term injuries with using big equipment. Yep. Traffic and mobile plant. So you could get hit by a moving vehicle.
Yes.
Unplanned collapses. Pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah.
Could fall on you. Could
Like the
fall
wall.
through the ground. Absolutely, like the wall of these kids.
Yeah.
Crushed. Has it been ultraviolet radiation? So what's the
Sunburn.
risk? Yep, sunburn. Well done. And working at heights.
Well, floating off.
Love the sound effects. Full death.
Wow.
Absolutely. So we look at the hierarchy of controls. So what can we do to control those risks? So we've identified the hazard. This is the hazard. And now we need to work out how to control the risk. So I'll get you to write these in your book
In the hierarchy of controls.
on the next page. So the first thing we need to do, if we can, is eliminate the risk if possible. So most effective way of dealing with the hazard, get rid of it. Not always possible, but So if it's not possible to eliminate, we can maybe substitute it for something that's less risky, less hazardous. So it's the replacement of the hazardous operation, material or substance by something which is less hazardous. So can you give me an example of substituting one hazard for something less?
Well, in kitchens,
Yep.
kitchen areas, you've got the washing up and those sort of chemical things. And I do know that if you've got, there's certain ingredients in some cleaning materials, and so you'd find something with less toxicity perhaps as a replacement.
Absolutely.
So that it's safer, because a lot of people have got more sensitive skin and that sort of thing, so you've got to substitute.
So you can't eliminate it because you do need to clean,
Yes, do you need to clean?
but you can substitute it for a less harmful cleaning solution. That's a really good idea. Great. So we've got those two down. Number 3, you can isolate the hazard. So you can use screens or barriers to isolate it, just to stop people from going in and hurting themselves. Put that down. You've got engineering controls, so enclosure, containment, illumination, process control. And then we've got administrative controls, so you might put signs up. So train people, signs, procedures, preventative measures. That one in. And lastly, as a last resort, we've got personal protective equipment. Now, and this includes hard hats, boots, gloves, anything like that. Now that's the last measure that you use, but you might actually use that with another one. So you might have signs up, so animal controls, and wear boot caps. So you might have more than one.
What do you do if one doesn't work?
Well, if one hazard doesn't work, you go to the next one on the list, and if that doesn't work, you then go to the next one. So if you can't eliminate, substitute. If you can't substitute, isolate. If not, engineering controls, and go down the list. But again, you can use more than one at the same time. Okay, we have a game.
Yeah.
Yay! It's called Spot the Hazard. So what I'll do is I'm going to hand out these sheets. Please put your name on them. And the date is the 17th of May 2016. Oh. Grab that. Okay, so you have 2 minutes on the clock to identify and list as many hazards and what the risks are in each of the following 5 pictures as you can. Okay, so I will bring them up one at a time. You don't have to look on this page. Hazards and risks, number 1. Any questions? You just write them in a spot, so you've got a spot for the hazard and the risk. There's 5 of these, so 2 minutes on the clock. And then we'll go through them together at the end. to get at least 3 if you can. Stop.
That's good. Oh,
Work site
my
2.
word.
Doesn't look very safe, does it?
It does not.
2 minutes on the clock. Ready, set, go. Try to list 3 hazards and the risks. Stop. How are we going? Who are we finding the activity?
Get there.
I'm not articulating very well.
Alright. 3 to go. Next time. 2 minutes on the clock. Go. working on this work site. Go. Final seconds. There we go. Oh, it's writing. Okay. What did we get for number one? Anyone want to share?
Burning heights,
Yep.
fall, death,
Yep. Beautiful.
Yeah.
What other hazards?
Could be A, because they haven't got the metal supports around it. Don't know what that's called, but it could be A.
Scaffolding.
Scaffolding.
Yeah, it could be an
Collapse.
unplanned collapse.
Well done.
They do collapse.
Yep, that's a good risk.
No proper walkway for the ward workers to work around under there, no hard hats on.
Well done. Risk being falling things for hard hats.
Yeah.
machinery, haphazard,
Yep.
the soil,
Machinery. Just lying around.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that.
loose cladding on the wall, collapse,
And what's he using? He's using something I can't quite make
No
it out.
gun.
Well, it could be that, yeah. I mean, you know, if he falls, bang, and he's got machinery in his hand, he's in trouble.
Absolutely.
And he hasn't got do they have to wear the
harness,
harness? Harness.
That's right.
Hot working.
UV,
I'm not sure
Yeah.
whether they've got sunscreen on or, you know, one of them's not even wearing a hat, I think.
Cool. Next one. What do we get?
Oof, stuff everywhere so they could trip or sleep,
Yep.
sleeping.
palming on those Rio bars,
Yes, absolutely. Anyone? Anything
heavy
else?
machinery up the back,
Yep.
get hit by it,
Hit
squash
by
it.
it.
Yep.
They've got no secure footing path, so, you know, that opens up to so many things going on.
falling hazards at the top right hand corner,
Yes.
get hit in the head,
Yeah. And maybe the work is too close to the machinery so that, you know, maybe problem on that side.
Yep. Well done. Next, what do we find here?
oh, that ladder,
Yeah, ladder.
Yeah.
Easy to fall off or fall onto someone
Yeah.
else.
It's not very stable, is it?
A proper walkway again with
Mhm.
the
fall hazards with the buckets on the side,
Yes, absolutely.
holes and rubbish everywhere.
Yep. Tripping hazards.
It's pretty big too.
Yep. What about this one? Worksite fall. What do we find for that?
gas bottle, explosion there.
Yes.
What's
Yeah.
that?
The
The
red
red
one.
one at the top.
Oh,
Top one.
didn't even see that. Oh, and the scout, there was no signs up between the scaffolding, the building and the walkway for the
Well
pedestrians.
done.
Yes.
To cover it all.
Plus it's an old building, so it could have a potential of collapsing in
Absolutely.
itself.
Asbestos in it.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And last one, the most dangerous. Have we go?
How can they even see what they're doing?
The driver.
Yeah.
Oh, under the wall where he's working, he's digging a hole and they collapse under.
And
Well,
where is
that's the
that? Is that-
trenches.
is that
Can you see
Pipe?
what's holding this
Yeah,
together?
pipe,
Thin
he can
wires?
burst.
Wires holding it up.
Oh,
Just wires holding it up. It's a little bit hard to see, but they're just wires holding it
Standing
up.
too close to the machine.
Stand too close, yes.
Mhm.
That guy's not wearing a hard hat even. Seconded.
The other one,
Yeah.
I think. No, he's not wearing, because he looks like he's wearing a beanie.
Okay, so to summarise, a hazard is anything that has the potential to cause harm. Then the risk is the likelihood of it causing harm and the consequences if it does. Is everyone clear on the difference between a hazard and a
Yep.
risk now?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Definitely.
So a hazard has the potential. The risk is the cause of it,
The likelihood.
the likelihood of it.
And what's going to
So-
happen from it.
Yeah.
And consequence. Yeah.
Okay, when dealing with hazards and risks, we use the hierarchy of controls. So eliminate, if not, we substitute, isolate, use engineering controls, admin, and do you remember what the last one was?
PPE.
Personal protective.
Yes, personal protective equipment, which is the least preferred option. You can use more than one. Now guess what we have now?
Test.
Test.
Oh,
Remember me saying all the way through, write these in your book?
yes.
They're going to come in handy
Oh, so
now.
it's open book test?
It's an open book
Yes.
test.
So these back now?
I'll grab these off here and I'll grab
Hope
the
you can
test
read the
off.
handwriting.
That's fine. Absolutely fine. Thank you. Whoops. Put that here. Thank you. Thank you. So please put your name on it.
Mm-hmm.
The date is the 17th of the 5th. And once you're finished, please bring it up to the front and I'll give you a feedback form to fill out. You have 15 minutes.
these when we finish.
Yeah. And I'll give you a feedback form. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Actually,
That's okay.
you passed. 100% right. Well done.
Can you go?
Yeah, if you finished, you can head on.
Thank you very much. That was awesome.
Awesome.
Do I get to keep this?
Is that one the handbook? Yes, you can take that with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
eyes must be much better. I didn't wear glasses.
Well
I
done.
brought it. It's in this overnight bag, but I brought it.
Thank you. Finished. Awesome. Cool. Perfect form. Well done. Well done. You both passed.
Yay!
Yay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the course.
Yes, thank you. Excellent. That's good.
Oh, it's going to get the timer anymore. Everyone's finished.
Mm-hmm.